The judge that presided over the bail hearing, um, she she was being doxxed. She is a victim of a doxing hoax. So a Texas judge who reduced a $1 million bond for the 17-year-old Austin McCaff's accused killer, Karmelo Anthony, was targeted in a doxing hoax. The Collin County Sheriff Office, in coordination with the FBI, is investigating the alleged doxing of Collin County Judge Angela Tucker, who agreed to significantly reduce Frisco track meet stabbing suspect 17-year-old Karmelo Anthony. Due to the nature of the situation, we are coordinating with the FBI and our Fusion Center to monitor for any concerning rhetoric or propaganda that could incite violence. Doxing, defined as a form of cyberbullying, involves publicly posting someone's personal information without consent. This type of harassment is illegal in the state of Texas if it involves posting another person's private information without consent with the intent to cause harm or to incite harm against them. So if someone is harmed during a doxing event, it also becomes a felony in Texas.
Except the problem is when you run for an elected position, including judgeship, you have to file the qualification petition and you have to be a registered voter in the district you're running. So when you're a registered voter, it's part of the public record as to what your name and address is. So all one has to do to find out where a person lives is simply look them up on the voting rolls to see what their address is, and you have it. So it would be kind of hard to.
But you can't make it public. And
yeah, it is public. It's public.
No. I mean, you can't.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying, forget what if
you're making it public maliciously, or if you're going up to that person's home, or if you take their address and then you run it in the data to pull up their finances or whatever.
I know, but see what they're talking about is scary judges. And I saw this when I had my show. The producers wanted me to dramatically get up after delivering the verdict and quickly rush off. And I said, no, I'm not moving. I'm going to eyeball the person. If I jacked him around, then he's going to confront me. I'm not running for what I did. And I know I had quite a few first-degree murder cases, sometimes where there were defendants around the system. I would, if the person got unruly, I'd just say, Madam Court Reporter, please turn the record off and turn to him. Look, I'm listed in the phone directory. If your homeboys want to come by and have some excitement, come on by. Now, let's get back to this case. And meanwhile, the rest of the judges would have the SWAT team line in their courtroom and get escorted home by 5 squad cars, and 4 would park out in front of their house. I'd just say, hey, bring it on. See, it depends upon the moral fiber and courage of the judge in question. They wanted to put this Kevlar in where I was on the bench you were looking at. So what they wanted to do was line the bench area with this thick Kevlar so you could dive behind it if somebody got violent in the courtroom. I said, you've lost your mind. I'm not diving behind any barricade. They want me to come get me.
Okay, so listen, if I get it, but at the end of the day, you are a man, she is a woman. But whether you're a woman or a man, you are a sitting judge, and
yeah, I know. But see, it fails if, as a matter of public record, they have to record with the election commission where you live in terms of where you're registered to vote. All right. So that's public record. All you got to do to find out where this person lives is just say, I want Jane Doe, what's her address? And you get it. Now, if somebody says it's against the law to publish that address that's already published, you run into these things where somebody was trying to be tough on law and order. But what they wound up doing was putting one of those statutes in place that gets to somebody's Supreme Court, and the decision has to be made as to whether it's a constitutionally valid criminal code.
Well,
See, that happens a lot on judicial conferences. For years, we'd say this is the new law that they introduced. And when we looked at it, it does not look like it is going to be constitutionally sustainable. Be aware of this if one of these cases comes in your courtroom. So be on your P's and Q's of setting this up because we will wind up dealing with it on appeal.
right. Well,
It happens all the time.
right, but judges in these high profile cases, especially if these high profile cases that the media is making high profile, yes, they have to be protected.
Well, yeah, but that's not how you protect them.
Also, well, the FBI is just investigating an incident, but also the McCaff family, they're dealing with nonsense as well because they are getting a slew of swatting pranks. So swatting is a false report made to law enforcement meant to get a SWAT team sent to a specific location. The prank is most commonly used against video streamers who are often broadcasting lies in hopes that the SWAT team's arrival will be visible on camera. The prank can be and arguably sometimes is intended to be dangerous as the victim is not expecting a SWAT team to burst through their door and they could injure or be killed in the process. So on Monday,
That's Breonna Taylor's situation. Her boyfriend wasn't expecting police. They busted in on a warrant that had already been served. And when he opened fire on them, they returned fire and killed her on the other side of the wall that they couldn't see through. See, it's
right.
dangerous.
So the Frisco police confirmed that the McCaff's family, they received a call that a gun, well, the Frisco police received a call that a gun had been shot at the McCaff property. And so when they arrived, they learned there had been no shooting. And according to the police, this is the third time the McCaff family has been swatted on. So you have the judge being doxxed and being threatened. You have the McCaff family, they're being swatted on. Karmelo Anthony family has been receiving threats. So that house that they were renting outside of their regular residency, they moved from that one to an undisclosed location. This is a circus.
Well, I've had that happen personally where police show up and like, what are you here for? Gunfire. What gunfire? And then I didn't hear any. And it might have been, I assumed, unless it was swatting, somebody, it was like July 6th or 7th, which is right after the 4th. I said it might be some kids with some fireworks, but I knew the cops. So, it's, oh, this is you, Judge. Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Blah, blah, blah. Now, I found out something that did strike me as a little strange. They have a celebrity list for the Memphis Police Department, Fire Department, and the Sheriff's Department. And all of the police have it as places to watch in case you get some crank. So it comes up, you're not on any of these lists. Of all people in this town, you ought to be one of the people on one of these lists for protective purposes, but they don't have you on there. I said, well, it doesn't bother me. I don't want you young guys getting put in jeopardy on my behalf,
Mm-hmm.
But,
let me
it is a concern.
Right. So it says police, the making a false report is typically considered a class A misdemeanor, which is punishable by up to a year in jail and maximum fine of $4,000. Texas is currently trying to pass legislation to make the punishment for swatting more severe. So yeah,
Especially if there is a shooting or something that results or injury.
right. Now, that case, listen, that we're not going to hear about the actual trial with Karmelo Anthony for a while. And the DA said the grand jury probably won't happen until June. But
An example, how long ago did the Tyree Nichols incident occur?
Yeah, I think that was in 2023.
2 years ago.
Yeah. So I want to go to here. Case and Allison, because this happened 2 years ago and the trial just started last week, and then closing remarks were today, and so they're on jury watch alert still tonight. So the jury went back to deliberate. And
in the murder trial of Kason Allison is still deliberating a verdict.
Allison is accused of stabbing and murdering Belton High classmate Joe Ramirez almost 3 years ago. 6 News reporter Sydney Walker has been in the courtroom since the beginning. Sydney, what can we expect from this jury?
Today is day 10 of the Kason Allison murder trial and supposedly the last day, but the jury has been deliberating for about 5 hours now and we still don't have a verdict, so we don't know what's to come just yet. Court began at 9 a.m. today with the defense requesting to have those wearing red removed from the gallery. Some family members and supporters of Ramirez wore red, and the defense argued this was an attempt to influence the jury, saying they want, quote, gang justice. Judge Faulkner denied this motion, as well as one to, alongside, include self-defense and criminal negligence. The judge then read the charge to the jury and provided instructions on general principles in each charge. They were reminded that Allison was accused of murder and had pleaded not guilty. In reaching a verdict, all 12 jurors must agree that a charge is or is not proven beyond reasonable doubt. First, the jury must consider 3 different theories of murder. If they find none to be proven, they then consider self-defense. If neither are agreed upon, manslaughter is discussed. If they don't agree on manslaughter, self-defense must be considered. Lastly, criminally negligent homicide is considered. And of course, they can also find Allison not guilty on all charges or struggle to agree, resulting in a mistrial. The state went first in closing arguments, saying they know that this was an intentional act by Allison, listing 8 different points, including Allison's prior threats and his attempts to flee following the stabbing, as reasoning why. They then said, quote, Joe Ramirez cannot speak for himself anymore, but the facts of the case do. The defense took all 75 allotted minutes for their closing arguments, recapping all 20 witnesses, resharing evidence, and discussing testimony. They focused on self-defense, the alleged flaws of Belton PD's investigation, and Ramirez's violent history. The court is in recess until a verdict is reached, but we don't have that yet. As a reminder, if found guilty, Allison has elected to be sentenced by the judge, not by the jury, and he faces anywhere from $10,000 to life in prison. We'll have more updates for you as soon as we hear that verdict. Live in Belton, Sydney Walker.
so what are your thoughts on that?
Common type of case.
10,000 to life in prison. That's a big stretch.
No, I mean, that's just a common case in the criminal justice system in America.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, that's what that blows my mind. It's like the whole thing with the 2 cases we just got through talking about the stabbings.
Mm-hmm.
They have them all the time. That's like, if you get a theft case, what kind of case do you think it's likely to be? Shoplifting.
Mm-hmm.
Shoplifting is a very common theft offense. If you get a homicide case, more likely than not, it's going to be somebody who was scared and took some kind of violent, fatal action against somebody that scared him.
True. But I'm just like $10,000 to life in prison. That's a big.
In other words, it can range from aggravated assault all the way up to.
But but this is like
See, what you do is you start off. In Tennessee, it would be murder in the first degree, murder second degree, voluntary manslaughter. It would be criminally negligent homicide, reckless homicide, and you go down this list. And for most of the circumstances that would be attended on the typical case, you charge the whole list. I've had juries acquit first degree murder, acquit second degree murder, and deadlock on manslaughter. So when the case goes back to trial, all the person's looking at is manslaughter, which in Tennessee is 3 to 15 years in the state penitentiary. And if they are a first offender in the initial range, they call that range 1 standard offender, he's looking at 3 to 6 years in the penitentiary. And if he is convicted of that 3 to 6 and he's a first offender, it is presumptive that he get probation absent some special showing. And if he has no prior criminal record, then it is presumptive that he get judicial diversion. So if he completes the probationary period, his record is expunged.
Okay.
So, I mean, it just works like that.
Thank you to Helamel. Dana, you and the judge are on fire tonight. Thank you. It's kind of a slow night. Like I said, I didn't take time to really flesh out a title. Thank you for doing this show tonight. Thank you, James. Crypto and precious metals. Thank you so much. And Walter, thank you, thank you, thank you. Why do I keep thinking that is something else that I'm missing to mention?
I don't know. We covered everything with the judges, including the two of them, but I expect more arrest of this kind of thing resulting from secret indictments now that Bondi is in the saddle. And some of our elected officials are going to be in trouble in posting bonds or ROR'd because of pending criminal charges. I've just found it extraordinary that people have been so overtly violative of various and sundry federal criminal laws, and nothing has been done, and the public doesn't even realize that you talk every time somebody says, I'm setting up a sanctuary city, or I'm going to thwart ICE, or I'm going to do this. They're talking about committing felonies, for goodness sakes. And what they claim they're going to do, or what they boast of having done, if somebody just proved what they claim they did or what they intend to do, that's a felony. Mm-hmm. So the American public has gotten such a lackluster performance from its press or media that the media isn't even advising them, and they remain in a state of abject ignorance as to what the law is. It's like if somebody says, I'm going to keep ICE from getting them because I think they should be here, and somebody actually does that, that's a felony. You know, that's 5 years, almost day for day in a federal penitentiary. That's 60 months, and you wind up doing 56 to 58 of those months in federal detention.